computer. All right. Okay. Good evening. I want to welcome everybody to the webinar. I've got my friend, Mr. Steve Deibel here tonight. We are going to be talking about breaking the age barrier. My friend Steve is with Penske Racing, but not just Penske Racing. He is with the number 12 Willpower team. Won the Indy 500 in 2018. Is that right, Steve?
That's correct.
Okay. And we have a couple of other guests with us. Adrian Pelkis here in Lexington. He's an inventor from San Diego, Navy guy as well. And my friend out in Texas, Elizabeth Lyons, my coaching buddy, who is keeping me straight tonight. So anyone else, when they come in, I'll just pop them in if that's all right with you guys. So Steve, I actually put an agenda together for this thing, which is really good. But for everybody else that's not listening, the purpose behind this thing, when I wrote the book, it was really about overcoming limiting beliefs. So as Steve and I had this conversation, and Steve and I, we had this discussion the other night, Steve, right? We talked about when you and I met, which was about 2007. Is that about right?
That's right.
When I came on the board with National Safety Council and then eventually served 2 terms as president, and we wound up growing that organization. But I always loved Steve because Steve was one of the best facilitators I think I've ever seen. But to see you grow and develop where you have, Steve, I'm just really proud of you. And I'm more proud to have contacted you and to have connected with you again and to just watch you grow and just cheer you on, man. So I'm real happy about that. So the message tonight is overcoming limiting beliefs, because in the game that you're in with the 20 and 30-year-olds, now this was the conversation that we had. You're on the number 12 Willpower team, won an Indy 500. Now, I want you to tell me a little bit about your background, Steve, just a quick bio, but then tell me a little bit about that process, because you didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to go to work for Penske Racing. And oh, by the way, I'm going to go to work for the top guy in the world when it comes to IndyCar racing. So tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, first of all, Brian, as I've told you before, it's beyond an honor to have you think the way you do of me. I'm humbled. You've always been somebody. I remember when I met you. Everybody on here knows Brian is not 5'2", so you're a large man in stature, but your heart is just as big. And what you're doing now with Lightning in a Bottle and John Maxwell team is just I'm excited for you, and I'm happy to be along for the ride. And you're right. Going back, I'll try to make my background as brief as possible. Basically, 1993, started in law enforcement. I spent 16 years as a police officer, and most of it was with the Aiken County Sheriff's Office here in South Carolina as a deputy sheriff. And I left there in 2009 after completing 9 years in community services with under Sheriff Michael Hunt, and just an awesome organization. The sheriff is wonderful. Really entrusted me building the community services division back up. We had one under previous administrations, and then due to budgets, community services typically gets the cuts. When things like that go on, and you put more resources into just deputies on the road. And so I was charged with building that division back up, and essentially, that's neighborhood watches, national night out, presentations, and basically charged with helping our community, helping Aiken County understand what it is to be a police officer and what law enforcement's role in the community really was. A lot of people, and still today, you can see it on the news every day, people are conflicted with what law enforcement's role is. And I really enjoyed that part of my job, because I would go to churches, I would go to neighborhood watches, anybody that wanted to hear, I would go and basically be as blunt as possible, not politically correct, but as blunt as possible, in helping them understand what we were there to do for them, because we are, law enforcement is a service organization. We're charged with enforcing laws, but we're charged to serve the public. And so being in that role was huge for me, because I wasn't in my 20s at that time. I had spent a good bit of time in law enforcement, and so I had a good experience underneath me to share those experiences, but also help folks understand what it is that we did. And so that propelled me to when I met you in the program Alive at 25, which is a 15 to 24-year-old defensive driving program, which is a national program run through the National Safety Council. It had started in South Carolina in early 07, maybe late 06, early 07. And I was part of the second instructor class to go through. And just the first class, second class, we were the trailblazers, if you were, but some wonderful, wonderful men and women in law enforcement that taught this program, because that was the unique part of this program, is it was only police officers that taught Alive at 25.
Yeah.
So that's what made it a special program. And once I started teaching it and going around and opening schools up and being asked to go around the state with our, founding group of instructors, I was hooked. And you talk about finding your passion. I was completely hooked in teaching and training and working with that age group, and just helping them understand what it was that was killing them behind the wheel. So basically, number one killer of teen drivers is traffic crashes. So helping them understand that was their risk factor and what they could do to not become a statistic. So that was my passion. You talk about finding passion, I found it right there. And then I was blessed 2 short years later, I got a call that, hey, we're hiring a new director, a traffic safety director for the council. That person was charged with running that program across the state, building the program, traveling the state, and not only increasing our instructor pool, training new teachers, but also working with chiefs and sheriffs and superintendents and principals and solicitors, and building the program in all areas. And that was not new to me, because the sheriff's office prepared me for that, but yet it increased my contact list. Right. And I know one thing that we've always talked about was life is about building that contact list. But before I forget, you also got to remember, sometimes you got to delete some people in your contact list. Yeah. Don't be afraid to delete. But so we became became the director of traffic safety director of Safety Council. And that's where we met, and what you all did on the board, and the folks before me, the folks after me, just really did a phenomenal job. That program is still a wonderful program here in the state. And but consequently, I met a trooper who has since retired, but he said, Steve, you need to open your own driving school. And I said, why in the world? I mean, I'm fine teaching a class, but why in the world would I want to ride around in a car and take my life into my own hands? Law enforcement was dangerous enough, but teaching driver education, I thought was just absurd idea. But he said, no, he said, you're a business guy. You got to think. He said, there's nobody in your area that's doing what you're able to do. And so I did some research, and long story short, I opened up Aiken Driving Academy in 2011, and still running that today. 10th
still
season.
Working with young people, right? Because that's
100%.
We got involved with it.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it's and I'll be honest, perfectly honest with you. I tried to sell it twice. Tried to sell the business twice, and I prayed about it, and I had two buyers lined up at different times, obviously, and it fell through at the 11th hour, and I just you can't be too specific or too greedy about the signs that are coming your way. You just gotta be open-minded to the signs. Well, those were two very clear signs to me that I wasn't supposed to sell my driving academy. And
Mhm.
so um, here we are today. You know, I'm up at Team Penske Racing, and I also have the driving academy. But I'm living in Mooresville, North Carolina, pretty much full time, except when we're obviously weekends and available to come home to Aiken. So it's
And right
still
across from the steakhouse, right, Steve? So
yeah,
we
yeah,
had to throw
I
in a
do. Yeah,
plug.
I do live across. I live across from the one of Mooresville's best steakhouses. So at 6:15, 6:30, Tuesday to Saturday, it smells really, really
Yeah.
good. So
So,
it's
so
not a bad.
Steve, for people that don't know this, okay, and having worked with the 5 on 5 off pit crew school up there, you know as well as I do, and you were sharing this story with me. Tell them the story real quick about running into Dale Jr. at the McDonald's in Mooresville, because Mooresville is just one of those places where all the race shops are, but
Yeah.
it's a town, and these are people, and just speak to that, because I thought that was a really interesting conversation, and we're going to pick back up where you left off.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick story. Basically, I'd started there within the first week of my starting there, and you can imagine, um, being at Penske and our own drivers, when they would walk through the shop, it's like, oh, there's Brad Keselowski, or there's Joseph Newgarden, there's Will Power, and you just like, all the people you've seen on TV, and racing, and there they are. And you get introduced to them. And so it's I was a fan, definitely a fan. And so I'm on the way. I'm riding in the truck, and Gary, our lead truck driver in our transportation department, he was driving, and we're heading down to one of our facilities in Charlotte, and he brought me along for the ride just so he show me where it was and everything. But so we're sitting there, and at a light, and there's a McDonald's to our right, and he goes, "There's Dale Jr. right there," and I look over, and I'm thinking he's next to us in the car or something, and there's like I think it's a 68, 69 Camaro. I'm not
Yeah.
100%, but the color of his Camaro, there's only one in all of Mooresville, and it's Dale Jr.'s. And so I could see him. He had a hat on, and I could see him as he was driving through the parking lot. I said that's Dale Jr. And Gary's like, yeah, that's Dale. That's his car. That's him. And he goes, and I said, he's at the McDonald's, and he goes, dude, that is one. And this is what he tells me. He says, Steve, he is one of the most normal human beings that you will ever meet in your life. And I've watched his podcasts, and just, since that day, I've wasn't really a huge Dale Jr. fan, but I love his podcasts. And long story short is, I'm not, living in that area. It's not unusual to see Dale Jr. or any other folks that are racing celebrities. I'm at the track, and Chip Ganassi and AJ Foyt. You mentioned AJ. AJ walks by at Indianapolis, and they're all. I mean, of course, we're all there together. So it's people that I grew up and you grew up idolizing, seeing. And I'm gonna throw this in here because it has to do with being a fan. But this past weekend down in St. Pete was our finale,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an individual that is legendary at Team Penske, and he's around all the time, and that's Rick Mears.
Yeah.
And Rick is he's helping Scott McLaughlin, one of our supercar champion from Australia. He's going to be driving our fourth race car next year, and I sit down to eat, and 2 minutes later, Rick gets his lunch and sits down next to me, and we just have an amazing conversation about life. And here I'm sitting here, and I'm in St. Pete, Florida, and I'm sitting at the same table as four-time Indy 500 champion Rick Mears, and we are just talking about stuff.
So Steve,
Just,
that
just
point you and I talked about, for me, growing up and seeing this on ABC Wide World of Sports, when the Indy 500 came on every year, And as a small kid writing a letter to Andy Granatelli at the age of 7,
Right.
you know, this was a big deal for me because I grew up around racing, and I told you I was a better race manager than I was a driver. We found that out very quickly. But one of the things that I love about racing is just that people aspect of it. And one of the things that I've learned about this, and what I hope we're going to be able to talk a little bit about, is it's all about relationships. So what I've learned from what you've told me tonight, where you started with being a police officer, you've talked about a couple of things: connections and relationships. Now, I'm jealous that you're sitting at the table with Rick Mears, okay, because I'm going to have just like one of the hugest bromances, okay, because these are guys I idolized. And having, I told you about going to Indy the first time, and there's nobody up there, and I'm going to the museum,
Right.
and there are people walking their dogs on the track, and the SPCA is letting people walk on the track. So I'm trying to scam a dog so I can get out on this track, right? Because this is hallowed ground for people like me. It's
Right.
ominous when you drive up there, but the history and the culture and all of that, tell me a little bit about that, because what I'm interested in is how you found out about Penske and why you thought Penske was possible. Because when you think about Roger Penske and Rick Mears, the Mario Andretti's, all those people, when they come together, even around a meal, they're just people, but they're special people, but they are just human, and they're treating you with respect that you deserve. And what you're pouring out tonight is going to pour out so much value on so many people.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway, and I try to I do work with a lot of young guys, and I work with a phenomenal group of people. That's one of the things that I really love about Team Penske is it's just a we're not perfect. No team, no organization is perfect, but wow, the people are amazing. The professionalism from the top down. I just am blessed to I'm humbled on a daily basis by their ability, by what they do on a daily basis. Being able to, we wrecked in at Iowa, and I told the crew chief the other day on the 12, Matt Johnson. I said, Matt, I don't know if I've ever, I didn't have a chance to tell you this, but what you all did after we wrecked in Iowa, getting ready for the next race because we had a doubleheader, and what he and his mechanics did up until they ran us out of the garage, and then still the next morning getting that car ready to go for the next race after he ran it into the wall and finished second in the second race was just amazing to watch those guys with a there was little to no talking. The only person that was talking was the crew chief telling guys what to do, and they were just going. And that's professional sports, whether it's baseball, as whether it's a golfer and his caddy. Uh, those relationships, that professionalism has to be there in order to be successful. And we have it, and it's an awesome thing to see on a daily basis and to learn and to be a part of it, because I am way outside of my element and my comfort zone. And but back to your point about when I knew, um, folks, if folks from the shop ever watch this, they know why I'm there. Is I had a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, who his father, was Rick Mears' crew chief. Rick Reineman, who was Rick Mears' crew chief, as well as Elio Castroneves' crew chief. Sean, his son, is a friend of mine. I knew him in college. We worked together at the sheriff's office, and then he went to work for Team Penske. This is his 14th season up there. And so he was the one that I hand delivered my resume to, but it took 3 years for me to get the phone call. It wasn't give your resume to Sean and boom, you're in the door. But it started with just when I was driving trucks, I left that kind of part out my background, but that's how I'm able to drive trucks. I had CDL and I drove trucks for a while, along with running the driving academy. And I guess to our original conversation a week or so ago is when I was in high school, I wanted to be three things in my life. I wanted to be a police officer, check. I wanted to be a firefighter, check. And I wanted to be a truck driver, check. So being at Team Penske was not on that original list, but those three things were. But when I was driving trucks and those race transporters would pass me, because they will pass you. They are moving a little faster than most trucks on the road, and they go by you. And I'm just sitting there. I was like, I'm going to drive one of those one day. I'm going to drive one of those one day. I would take pictures when I pull into a Flying J or Pilot to get fuel, and one of them was in there. I would take pictures. And I just started building that desire to do that. And I knew Sean was there, but I really didn't think it was reality. I really didn't think it was going to happen. And I had my resume there. I got excited 1 year, nothing happened. And then really, when I got the phone call, Brian, I had really totally forgotten about it. It was not even on my radar. I was driving to North Augusta to pick up a student for a driving session, and a 704 number came up, and I thought it was Sean calling from the office. So I just answered and said hello, and it said, "Hey, is this Steve?" And I said, "Yes, this is Steve." And I realized quickly it was not Sean. And it said, "Hey, this is Keegan Parton from the HR department at Team Penske Racing. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Now I'm driving, and I'm a driving instructor, so I knew this conversation was going to take my full attention away from what I was doing. So I pulled into a gas station, and we had a 20-minute conversation, which led to a Zoom interview, which led to an in-person interview, which ultimately led to me starting at Team Penske. So it wasn't until that phone call that day, out of the blue, 3 years after my resume was on file, that I was like, wow, this could happen. But that was the news. That was the good news. But yet then I now have to face the reality that I'm in a relationship. I have children. I have responsibilities here. And then the tough part came of pros, cons. Is this the right thing to do? Is this, the timing? I knew this was it. If I said no, this was never going to happen again. That was the biggest thing for me, is knowing that
Right.
I could easily say no, this isn't the right time. But I knew if I said that may be the right decision. But I also knew I was never going to get another phone call from Team Penske, and I was not going to drive one of those trucks that I'd always taken pictures of going down the road. It
So
wasn't going to happen.
Steve, I'm glad Elizabeth and Adrian are on here, because this is a connection point for all of us, because for me personally to have taken the step that I took last November, for Elizabeth to take the step, and our connection is a whole different story. It came through our Common Elements financial advisor, because during COVID, he sent me a pecan pie and with a note on it. And I got mad about it. And I was like, what the heck? Here, you need to be looking at my account, because I want to retire. I want to do this coaching stuff forever. So I called him up the next day and I said, look, Catfish, you need to be looking at my account. You don't need to be going out and buying these high-end pecan pies. Thank you. It's good. It's really good. It'll last me maybe through COVID because of all the calories, but it's not going to get me through retirement. So get back on my account and make some money for me. But the first thing he said was, I have this friend in Texas. She just joined the John Maxwell organization, and she's looking for somebody to help her go through the system. And that's how I met Elizabeth. And boy, she has added so much value to me. It's ridiculous. And that's a whole different story. So we've got 4 webinars going here. We're teeing up the next ones. So Elizabeth, I got one with you. Adrian, I got one with you. Now, I will tell you this, Adrian, I wish y'all could see my fingers, because I'm like pointing all over the place here. But Adrian, we just met, right? the other day because of this whole connection. So, Steve, what you just said, all of us had dreams and aspirations. Adrian, one of the inventions we talked about was this burn suit. He works in the medical field to help people, but it's about adding value to people. And it starts with a dream. So his organization with the South Carolina inventors, there's a lot of people out there that are going to see this and listen to this who have really good inventions that just can't get to that next step, that just can't make that decision. You said something so important to me the other day about this decision, and you said it was about 95% uncertainty. I remember you said that, and I want you to speak into that a little bit because Elizabeth shares that, I share that, and Adrian shares that. And that's a common element for all of us because if we were to talk about all of our stories, we all have that point of uncertainty where we had to step off. And I really want you to speak into that because the people that are going to see this really need to hear this because that had to be a tough decision for you.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian. And man, I could just listen to you talk all night. I yeah, I'm speechless right now. I'm just listening to you talk, and I'm like, oh, it's my turn. Um, it, I think I'm an old basketball guy. I was born and raised in Indiana, and grew up on Hoosiers, and the old saying is you're gonna miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and so this decision to go to Penske was not 100% slam dunk. There was people in my life who I love and I care deeply about, and I had responsibilities here with my driving school, and so it's not just if I was 25 and I had nothing going on, it'd be like, oh, I got an offer to go to work at Team Penske, I'm gone, and then you just only thing you got to worry about is moving. I had a whole lot of other things, and so I still have conversations, here in Aiken about my future and how, I get that a lot. Well, how long are you going to stay up there? And, how long are you going to be there? And, people know you for who you are. So they know me with Aiken Driving Academy. A lot of folks don't even realize I'm at Team Penske. It may say it on my Facebook, my Facebook profile, but a lot of people don't even know I'm there, and they'll see something on Facebook like I'm at a track, and they're like, man, you sure do get around. And I'm like, well, that's kind of what I do. So people know you. I've been doing Aiken Driving Academy for 10 years, so people know me for that. It's kind of like the old multi-level marketing thing. When you start something new, one of the fears that people have when they get into MLMs is that, if you're Brian Pearson and then you want to, you started an MLM and then you make that cold call, right? Well, people know you for you. They don't know you for the new MLM you're in. They know you for you. So they tell you to be you. Well, it's hard to be just you when you're trying to sell something, get somebody to come to a meeting, get somebody to jump on so long story short is the decision to go to Team Penske was not easy. But when I looked at what Team Penske could do for me in my growth, not as much as what I could do for them, but what they could do for me in my personal development, it was so hard to get past that because I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. Because Sean, one of the things that my buddy Sean told me for 3 years, he said, dude, this is not easy work. What we do here and what those truck drivers do is not easy work. And I said, man, you act like I shy away from work. He said, no, I just know you and I know what you've done. He knew me from being a sergeant at the sheriff's office and community services and giving presentations. And he said, this is putting up tents and polishing wheels and stainless and just long 14-hour days at the track. And he said, this is not what you're used to. And he really prepared me so well for what I really found out. I was there less than 3 months and he's walking through the shop. I said, oh, you were so right. You were so right. He goes, I tried to tell you. But I knew that coming to Penske was more about what it could do for me and helping me grow. I'll be 50 in February, and I'm so excited about turning 50. I've told you I'm reading Tim McGraw's book. His transformation took place in his late 40s, early 50s. If you haven't read Tim McGraw's book, it's an amazing read. It'll get you excited about maybe looking like him one day. But the bottom line is, yeah, Brian's like, no, it's not going to happen. But you can
No,
do
I
it,
get
buddy.
confused with Tim McGraw all the time when I take my shirt off. It's like,
But it's really about opportunity. So whether it's an invention, whether it's a, you know, whatever it is you're doing in life, is think about the next opportunity, not as what the sacrifice, because every good opportunity is going to have sacrifices. There's no such thing as a free ride. There's no such thing as going to be easy. So think about, what if I make this move, what is it going to do for me? And if the answer is it's going to help me become a better person, a stronger person, a more developed person, then that's got to weigh heavily in your decision. And that's what it did for me, because I'm telling you, leaving Julie behind, leaving my son Connor and my son AJ and my daughter and Ramsey, who actually works for me now at the driving academy. She's 22, but still, everything I had was here. And so it's still not easy.
yeah,
But it's a lot easier for the people around me knowing that that we're having success. That, you know, Penske's really good about direct deposits every 2 weeks. They're really good. They're really good about that. So
yeah,
yeah, it's never going to be 100%. But
yeah,
you gotta really think about, what will this opportunity do for me in my development? Because I don't look at retirement. I don't even think about retirement. I will retire when I can't walk, can't talk. I will do something until I physically and mentally can't do anything. And if the guys at the shop are watching this, they're going to say, mentally you're done already, but that's not true. I still got some life left in me.
So, Steve, I gave you one coaching point, right, to share with the guys at the shop. So I hope you remember it.
Yeah, I left my notes yeah.
Okay. So let's see if you can repeat it for these guys.
Yeah, the root cause, but good Lord, I'm horrible. I hate when you put me on the spot. The root cause of conflict
Is unclear.
is unclear expectations.
That's right. Okay. So, one of the things that you told me, and I'm so proud of you, I think my job as a coach is to be the world's ugliest and oldest cheerleader, because this is the juice for me to watch you guys be successful. Tom Landry said it this way: the job of a coach, he said, my job is to tell you what you don't want to hear, show you what you don't want to see, so you can be who you want to be. And that's my job. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life until I can't move or breathe anymore. Because people get this whole concept of coaching wrong, because I want to do it at the highest level possible, just like you do. But I'm one of those people, I speak very straight and very blunt to people. But when you talk about, for Adrian, having people that have these inventions that can help people, but they won't make that next step, we're actually kind of robbing people of that. But for you, you're showing people what it's like to overcome those barriers of age or physicality or unfair comparisons to other people. Because you told me that a lot of guys get into this, they're former race car drivers and they work their way up the organization, but you actually have aspirations beyond this, which means that you're still moving forward. So, John Maxwell's 15 laws of growth, I always go back to it. First law is intentionality. And if you get that one wrong, you're done for. But you were intentional when you set that vision in your mind, in your mind's eye. You knew what that goal was. The goal never changed. The plan may have changed. You adjusted the plan, but the goal never changed, right?
That's 100% correct. Very
Okay.
very intentional about it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean that's what gets me excited about you. I have always been and always will be one of the biggest Steve Deibel fans on the planet. And I just love seeing you be successful because you're doing your purpose in life, because what you're showing people is that it is possible. So many people get hung up on not doing it, not reaching their fullest potential because they won't take that next step. And man, I just applaud you for it. And I'm so grateful to you for doing this. Steve, let's talk a little bit about the future, because we had that discussion, because you're nowhere near done. And I think it's cool. I want you to talk a little bit about your job on the 12 team, because you have two critical jobs. Now, there's a couple of key points I want you to bring out. We had the discussion about all the people throughout the organization, okay, from the
Mhm.
top to the bottom, that makes the whole Penske organization run. So, this conscious bias that we have sometimes about somebody being too old or somebody not fitting in, those are wrong. They're absolutely wrong, because people have more potential in themselves than we can imagine. So, if you don't mind speaking to that just a little bit, and I want you to start with our conversation around the people there at the Penske shop and why their jobs are important.
Well, one of the things that Mr. Penske is very well known for is building relationship, human capital, if you will, and he is a master at building relationships and making everyone from Willpower, Simon Pagino, Joseph Newgarden, down to Reggie, who is in the janitorial department.
Yeah,
Everybody has a role, and everybody's role is important. I mean, look, Reggie's not driving the race car, but if Reggie's not taking the trash out and cleaning the bathrooms and the toilet, then the people that come to Mooresville to see our facility are just like, ugh. But they don't say that. Everybody that comes to Mooresville, that comes to 200 Penske Way to see our facility is like, are you kidding me? This is a
yeah,
race shop. This, you could eat off the floor. And it's because of Reggie.
yeah,
So um, everybody has a role. And that's one thing that he is masterful at. And of course, that trickles down. Now, like any organization, sometimes when water comes down, sometimes it'll take a detour, right? It'll come over here and then it'll find its way back. So again, I mentioned, wonderful, wonderful place, wonderful people, but we're not perfect. And what I see my role is as helping those people that are causing that water to go this way, is to stop causing it to go this way. It needs to go this way.
yeah,
And that's because what Mr. Penske wants and what Mr. Penske is pushing in human capital needs to go straight down. It doesn't need to take a detour, because his message and his what he has built, his he's 83 and he's built his whole life. This is he has a lot of other things other than Team Penske Racing. We are the entertainment division of Penske Corporation, right? And so, long story short, it's about my role there is going back to what I've done, and that's train, teach, uh, be a business owner, be a leader, be somebody who can encourage and help. And I truly believe, and believe it to the core, that if I have zero problem with somebody that I work with jumping straight over the top of me and getting what they want because I helped them get there. I don't mind them going straight over the top to get what they want, to get what they deserve, because I was a part of them achieving that success. That's what leadership is.
yeah,
But to have folks that are not interested in that makes that water go this way. And so what I see my role at Team Penske being is, right now I'm, as you alluded to, right now I'm in the transportation department. I'm driving the Verizon 12 truck, which is Will Power's car. So when Will's winning races, it got there on my back. So it was on the trailer. We got it there. myself and my co-driver, Adam, who's actually the lead on the, I'm the co-driver, he's the lead on the truck. And we get the cars, to the track. We set up the garages, we set up the tents, we set up the pits, we do all that. The show goes on, we tear it down, put it back in the trucks, and we go back to the shop. And that's what I do. And then when we're at the track, at the race, during the race, my job is what's called the dead man, which is there's a fuel lever on the rig. So when the fueler goes to plug in to fuel the car, there's just a lever that I throw down as the car is coming in. It allows fuel to flow to the probe. And when the car goes away, I lift it up, the fuel stops. In the case of a fire, I let off, there's no more fuel, so we're not fueling a fire. Essentially what it is, why it's called the dead man. So as my fueler told me the other day, I said, man, you're such a great guy. You did a great job this year. All your plugins. He said, well, I couldn't do it without you. And I said, no, you're exactly right. Because if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So it's the essence of team. It's everybody has a role. If I don't throw the lever down, he doesn't fuel the car. If we don't turn the nitrogen bottles on, the guns don't work. I mean, it's just so simple, but yet everything has to happen in an order. A lot of the order we take for granted, but everything has to happen in a certain way for those pit stops to happen, for Will to win. And that's what you realize when you're watching a race at home. You see the guys come in, they pit, and they're like, wow, that was really fast. You just have no idea how fast it is until you're actually in the pits doing a pit stop. It goes by like that.
Yeah.
And
so Steve, speak to that for a second, okay? Because when I was working with the 5-on 5-off pit crew guys up there, that's where all the guys go that want to make a name for themselves as a pit crew member. I remember I watched the Red Bull team turn one of the first NASCAR 12.5-second pit stop. So 22 gallons of fuel, 4 tires, adjustments, tear offs, the whole 9 yards. And they were practicing. So what you've described to me, if you put this in the context of leadership, making decisions, understanding things, I want to kind of pull this together a little bit so people understand what we're talking about. What you said is every job, from the person sweeping and mopping that floor and making sure there's toilet paper in the bathrooms, all the way up to willpower winning that race, every job in between there is mission critical. Would you say that? I mean, if that job doesn't happen, the Penske organization doesn't work right. You don't get the car to the track. It doesn't work the way it needs to be. It doesn't flow well. But our view sometimes, that conscious bias that we have, we all see ourselves as more important than we really are, versus seeing the value in other people. And honestly, if we view every job in that organization, like you said, from the top of the water coming down, as mission critical, it changes the way that we look at it and the way that we treat each other. I, I mean, for me, that's what I hear you saying, because honestly, you're one of the best facilitators I've ever seen. And I just love you for it, because you've helped me be better. But this whole concept, I think this is really one of the bigger points we've got to get across, because as a coach, we miss it in business sometimes because we devalue our people. We don't get the most out of our people. You said the word human capital. The biggest value you have in your company is your people. It is the greatest asset that you have. Now, I will say this, and I'll go out on a limb. I will say technology has made us all stupid. It has made us to the point where we don't have to think. Now, Adrian, please don't take offense to that, because there's a need for it. But one of the things that I've always loved about racing is, if you look at the history of IndyCar from its very early beginnings up to where you guys are now, and look at how the innovation has come. And I was telling you about going to the museum and seeing AJ Foyt's recreation of his old shop. And that stuff just really gets me going, Steve. This is why this is important to me, because man, you hit on a point tonight that most people don't get. They don't get the fact that everybody in the organization has value. And for those of you that are sitting out there listening, and you have something, you have an idea that you want to get across, but you just can't make that next step, you have value. It's about adding value to other people. And Steve, you do such a great job of that. Man, I think that's why I've always been one of your biggest fans, is because your view of the world is about adding value to other people.
All right, again, you had pecan pie. I need to get some humble pie over here. You're very kind, but it's I've learned over the years, and I think I've shared with you. I years ago I got into an MLM, multi-level marketing type business, ACN, right out of Concord, North Carolina. I'll never. I'm not active with that anymore. Probably they folks there would probably say, "Oh, you could have made millions of dollars," which maybe I could have. I don't know. But what I did get out of that was all of the personal development, all of the. I went to most of the conventions, and that's where I heard John Maxwell and Darren Hardy and even Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, at one of the conventions. And but I love that part of it, because that's what the group at ACN is. The four co-founders there are just wonderful human beings. And although it didn't work out as a business for me, I took so much. Again, it was a part of my journey that I said, what can ACN do for me? And what it did for me was it started me on a personal growth journey that I haven't given up. And I learned so much from you've got to work on you. When you get up in the morning, if you're not happy, that's a choice. It's, everybody's got circumstances in their life. Everybody has stuff. I'll never forget, I went through some personal stuff myself years ago, and I went to see my pastor, and I'll never forget him saying that to me. I was rambling. I was and he's like, "Steve, stop." He's like, "Everybody has stuff. You're going to be okay." And I was like, "You mean other people got this kind of stuff?" And he's like, "Absolutely, and 10 times worse." So when you're in an organization, and the moral to the story is, whether it's Team Penske or Michelin or whatever business you're in, if you don't look at everybody as everybody's going through something, and if you can't, being a police officer, I had to read body language. I had to be very good at it. I think I told you this. I was in 2 fights in 16 years. It was with the same guy. The first time I arrested him, and the second time I arrested him. But and I'm not saying I didn't fight with it. That was all out fight, like for survival. That, we had to chase some people, and people didn't want to go to jail, kind of thing. But I was good at picking up on body language. You didn't have to open your mouth. I could just see, are you in a good mood, bad mood? You happy to see me, not happy to see me? Are you getting ready to run? I could read all that. And that parlayed over to business, where when my staff, I could tell if somebody was having a good day, not having a good day. And then as a leader, as an owner, as a manager, if you will, I would say, "Hey, Brian, you okay today, bud? Everything good?" And then I may not say a word. I may just later that night just send you a text, "Brian, hey, it looked like maybe you're having some stuff going on today. If you need me, let me know. But I really appreciate you had a good day today. You're always doing a good job. Hope everything's okay. See you tomorrow." Things like that just go a million miles with people. And we don't, believe it or not, we don't make a ton of money doing what we're doing. Everybody thinks you work for Roger Penske, you're loaded. Mr. Penske has done very, very well. Mr. Penske has a lot of stuff. Steve Deibel does not. There's a reason for that. He's Mr. Penske, I'm Steve Deibel. The bottom line is, when he walks when he's at the track, I get the same smile and same hello as Tim Cendrick, his president. I get the same Mr. Penske, right? And so I think it's an indirect lesson, but it's a very important lesson, is when you walk into a room, everybody that sees you and everybody that you see deserves your attention equally.
Yeah.
You know, I know we've all been in those situations where some people get more attention than the others. You're like, well, what about me? Why, you know, if I'm not going to get your attention, why am I here? And you have to ask that yourself in business and in leadership, is if I'm not making everybody feel important, if I'm not making everybody feel like, why did I invite them to the meeting? Why are they on this Zoom call if they're not as important as Brian Pearson and I having this conversation? You know, Elizabeth's there, and you know, he's got it. What was the name? The inventor, Adrian. Well, he doesn't have Adrian on there, so that's why I was looking. But so Adrian has to feel just as important as Elizabeth and you and I, and that's something that you either have or you don't have, but you can learn that. That's not something that you some people have it, but it is something you can learn. And if you're in a position of leadership, to have that ability to make everybody feel important, not equal, important, because that's an important distinguishment. Because if you've been at Michelin 40 plus years, not everybody in your organization is equal, but they are equally important.
Steve, we only have a couple more minutes, and Elizabeth and Adrian, I'm going to get you guys to unmute yourselves because I want to give you an opportunity to give Steve some comments and ask some questions, and then I'm going to close up shop for us. You know, this is really my first go at it. I have tried to publicize and get people engaged and involved with this thing, and maybe the time's wrong, but we're going to have this recorded so people will be able to go back to it and watch it. I think there's been so much value in this tonight, Steve, and I can't thank you enough for it. I will tell you this. You were talking about taking the picture of the trucks when you were driving a truck. I take pictures of you guys because I'm chasing significance, and each of you are the type of people that I want to be, because anybody can have success, but not everybody can be significant. And in my world, you're significant because you understand the fact that money is not a measure of a person. It is about how you treat people. People don't care until they know how much you care. People will come around you, they will help you, and they will help you achieve your dreams if you just help enough people achieve their dreams. And you're one of the best at it, Steve. And I am so grateful you came on this call tonight. And this is going to touch a lot of people. My boy TC Bradley, I wish TC was on tonight because I think my episode airs Sunday night on the Word Network, 9:00. 200 countries, 103 million people. It's going to get to see this beautiful face. It gets confused with Tim McGraw sometimes, but I'm not about success. It's about significance. So I just thank you so much, Steve. You've added so much value to me. It's ridiculous, and I'm grateful to you.
Love you, man. I love you, man. I appreciate those kind words.
So, Adrian, Elizabeth, I'm gonna turn you cats loose on Steve, and y'all just have at it. That's all you have? No questions?
I was just waiting to see if Adrian was going to speak up first.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
First, Steve, thank you for being willing to come on and just share, your story and your journey, because that's what life is. It's a journey, and journey is not much of a journey until you've learned to take some detours and see some of the things on the side of the road that you didn't plan on seeing, to add the flavor and color to that journey. But there are a couple of things that I was really glad to hear you talk about. And obviously the one about, just this idea of stepping out in faith. I truly believe that when we do that, we open ourselves up to things that our minds could never conceive or dream of. And yes, sometimes we fail sometimes, but what is it? Maxwell says, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And so some of us do a lot of learning in life before we get there. But the part that resonated with me too, which you would not have known this, I have a son, a grown son, and the father of my precious 3 granddaughters, is in law enforcement presently and has been for quite some time. So I'm very familiar with that world and all that it has in it. So thank you for your service, number one. Secondly, the part about the struggle. Do I leave my family? What do I do? And I have to tell you that when I first, the previous company that I worked for, they're based in California. I live in Texas. And they wanted me to move to California. And I said, that's just not possible. And I won't go into all the reasons. It just was not possible. I wanted to work for them. They wanted me. And it was actually my husband who said, wait a minute. Let's don't cut your nose off to spite your face. Maybe you don't have to move out there. You can travel out there all you want to. I'd support you on that. And so for almost 2.5, 3 years, I was home a week and in LA a week, back and forth, back and forth. So every weekend, I was either coming home or I was packing and getting ready to leave. It was a tough life. What it did was open up even more opportunities and for me to learn and to grow. And I know that's what's happening for you right now. You'll know when the time comes, if it's too much, it'll show. And I know you'll have that discernment. And then the last thing I would say is I really love the fact that you get people. For me, it's all about people. To me, business is a science. You can learn it, it's structural, you know the right things to do, but people, some people might say it's a science. I think it's an art, and you have to learn how to be with people, to understand people, how to respect people. And when you get that part right, the business will happen, because you can put systems in. And Brian, we always say it's make a difference over make a dollar.
Yep.
If you make a difference, you will make a dollar. And I'm glad to see you doing that. Very encouraging to hear you speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for being with us tonight. And thank you for those kind words. It's where's your son working?
He's in Dallas.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
He's
Now, are
in
you in
Dallas.
Dallas?
He's been in Dallas for quite some time. In fact, he would probably be upset if we don't talk about it.
Yes.
We keep that part quiet, but he's been around for almost every major thing that's happened in Dallas, including, the big shooting in Dallas. And he was downtown that night, and we all sat just wide-eyed with the live feed, hoping that I did not see my son. But he's presently working in the gang unit and with other federal task forces. So we're not supposed to talk about that.
That's right. That's right.
We don't say his name. We don't say anything. And if anybody asks, we say he makes furniture, because he does too.
We're not showing his picture, so it'll be all right. But yeah, I think that it's probably safe to be in the gang unit. Yeah, it's probably one of the safe places to be, actually. I say that jokingly. No, I had a dear friend of mine that he's now transferred over to the East Coast, but he's with the ATF and lived there in Denton, and was also down there the night. Tragically, those 5 officers were shot, and so it's yeah. So I appreciate your service as a mom, because I know what my mom went through when I was serving. Even when I was doing neighborhood watch meetings, she said, "I still worry about you." I said, "Mom, I'm out. I'm talking to a room full of seniors at the senior center tonight. I'm gonna be okay." But I understand what you go through, and so we appreciate his service as well as yours. So, but your kind words, I really appreciate. It is about getting people, and I say part of that was about, law enforcement really helped hone that skill, but it was really just my upbringing. My parents are still to this day just 100% my dad is a genius with people. As far as I will call him and ask him about a situation, about a person or something of a human nature, and his insight is just ridiculous. I'm just like, are you kidding me? Where'd you come up with that? And that's kind of I get that, and you're right. It's an art. Some of the things that he alludes to, and then they turn out to be true, and I'm just like, where? And of course he jokes and he goes, "Son, I'm 77. I've got a little bit of experience." But anyways, but I appreciate your kind words, and I love Texas. My sister's down in San Antonio, and I started to make a joke about you not moving to California. Is like, you are very intelligent not to leave Texas to go to California. On as a joke, that would be 100% correct, because we're not leaving Texas for California any day of the week.
I've heard there's a saying that says that people that leave Texas and go to California always come back, but people that leave California to come to Texas never go back.
Yeah, that's
And of course, I don't know what other states think about people from Texas, but it's been a great place, and I'll continue to just encourage you. The one question I would have is, what is your biggest, what's this dream? And you said, okay, check box on the police, check box on the fire department, which you didn't even talk about that. And now you're doing this. I guess my question would be, is your goal just to, is there another big goal on your list out there besides those three things? Or does it fall more into the category that we talk a lot about, is there some of us that just making a difference in people's lives is huge. And it doesn't matter which company name is attached to it or which, division of anything. It's really being able to be in a place where you make the situation, the people, leaving it in a better place than you found it. So how does your future look for you? What are you looking for or toward?
I really believe that the driving academy, and going back to when I met Brian at the Safety Council and Live at 25 and working with young people, this now having the Team Penske name as a part of my story adds significance to my message. It helps get my message out there to young people, and so 100% it's about adding value to our young people. I mean, let's face it. We play myself and all my staff. I mean, my guys, my instructors are out there every day working with our young people, and our young people look at it as they're getting their driver's license, but their parents and the instructors and myself look at it as we're doing everything we can in a short period of time to help you hopefully make better choices behind the wheel so you don't end up a statistic. And just the other day on a road test, one of our students gets hit on a road test. Now, that's not what you want to happen on a road test. But the bottom line is he gets hit. So my instructor literally takes the opportunity to look at him and says, "Was Steve right?" And he goes, "Well, he said it was coming after I got my license, not before. I hadn't even got my license yet." But the bottom line is what I tell our young people is helping them believe in what we're saying as more experienced people in their lives. I mean, I'm no different than they were. When I was 15, 16, I was a true 15, 16-year-old. And now at 49, almost 50, I share with them, I said, look, I'm no different than you. I'm just older. And information I'm going to give you is to hopefully help you skirt those mistakes, because our job in life is to survive our mistakes. And so like Brian's doing and what you're doing and Adrian, we're all trying to make a dollar, but we're all trying to help somebody else survive their mistakes. And that's really where I see my significance being, is with our young people. I started the driving academy as a retirement gig. I was going to keep it. And then that was as long as I could crawl in and out of a car. That's what I was going to do. So I don't know what Team Penske's got in mind for me down the road. I see myself in more of a leadership role there down the road. I feel like my experiences has given me the tools. I am definitely in learning mode. Definitely in learning mode there. And like I joke with Brian all the time, if any of those guys were on here right now, they would be laughing, going, "Oh yeah, he is definitely in learning mode." Because it is. I am not a mechanic. I'm not a wrench turner. Matter of fact, they won't let me work on golf carts anymore because I tried to blow one up, and so tried to set it on fire in the shop. So that would have been a tragic thing. But the bottom line is that's how you get out of working on golf carts. You just try to light it on fire. So, but yeah, I think that's where I definitely see myself at Team Penske, as well as continuing to run the driving academy and just continue to pour into our young people. And then of course we have a lot of young people at Team Penske, and being able to help our young people in some form or fashion in their daily operations there.
I'm really happy. I guess my parting words on that would be, I can sense it in you already, but I've worked with younger people. I'm old enough now. There's a lot of younger people for me to work with, but the lesson I've learned is don't pretend to be something you're not. They see through that in a New York minute, and I don't know what New York minute means. I would think a minute in Texas is the same as in New York, but whatever. And it's to me, what has served me the best is just being me. Don't apologize, just be you. And it sounds like you already are, but they love that. They need incredible role models who are not handling them. They need role models who are real and that they can count on, and who will, just be very truthful and honest. I've told my granddaughters, they're 8 and 9, and then a brand new 4-week-old grandbaby. But the two older ones, there's questions that I have put in them all along. And I said, what is true about Nana? Nana will always tell me the truth. And I said, don't forget it. I'll always tell you the truth. And they know that now. And I want to keep that going with them through there. So congratulations on everything you're doing.
Adrian, how about you?
Well, indeed, I want to echo the same sentiments. Thank you very much, Steve, for sharing your story. Very inspirational. And I also want to thank you for your service. That's my wife and I are ex-Navy, and we're very proud to serve our country. But these days, I do so support that thin blue line. So you got to believe that. I want to share with you that I've always loved watching car racing. The vision systems that they put on the cars now, where you can see right from the car view, and I even like watching the suspension systems. But one of the most enjoyable parts for me has always been the amazing orchestrated efforts of the pit stop team, and the way that's all choreographed, and it's just an amazement. And I've always admired that and watched that, and the opportunity tonight to talk to somebody who's involved with that in any way, I thought would be very fascinating. And thank you. You touched on something. So my questions regarding that, and really, again, congrats on the success of having such a winning team. And you said that will to win. You touched on that. And I want to ask you, is that you mentioned that you practice, and of course that creates the muscle memory, and that's as effective as the body can be. But I imagine there's quite a bit of spirit that comes from that will to win. And I'm wondering what you do to encourage or motivate that portion, their psyche. How do you work on, what's your part in affecting the players in that regard?
That's, again, appreciate your service and your wife's service as well. And thank you for the kind words. It's interesting. What I didn't allude to is, that's my job on the 12, but the first race of the season was in Texas. And when I got to Penske, my buddy, Sean, who was the one that got the resume 3 years prior, he's also the pit coach for the Indy side. So I started working out with the teams and air jacking. And so when COVID happened, we were down in St. Pete, and then we had the long break, and then we were getting ready and we were practicing. And so I was back up and I was just practicing with the teams. Well, then the starting air jacker on the 22 car, which is Simon Pagino's car, got sick, not COVID, but got sick. And because of COVID, they didn't allow him to travel. Even though he wasn't sick with COVID, it was because we were in that world of, hey, somebody's got sniffles, doesn't need to go anywhere. So I got the phone call and it was, hey, you're going to air jack the 22 at Texas. Now, mind you, this is my first race as a member of the team, and it's going to be the first time I'm going over the wall. And as I told Brian the other night, Texas was 98 degrees. It was the first race. It was hot. The infield care center was a revolving door of people going in to get IV bags. I was one of them. I got out of the infield care center 45 minutes before the green flag, and then I pitted the race car. It was overall, for everything that went on that day, we started third and we finished second. It was a very good outing for me for a first time, if you will. But in answer to your question, is being a part of that was my one time this season. And of course, in the off season, we'll still work out and hopefully have an opportunity for a starting position at some point. But that team and our team and all of our teams, it's about an attitude. And really, no stop is the same, because the driver can go a little bit long, because, in a pit stop, they have marks, right? So they're coming in and they need the car to stop at a certain point. Well, the drivers are really good, but sometimes they go a little long, sometimes they're a little short. Sometimes they're really long, sometimes they're really short. And so the muscle memory of what we do is what gets you through the anxiety, right? So you have a little bit of nerves, you have a little bit of anxiety before you perform, and then just do what you do, right? But then every stop takes on a new look. It takes on a new, every stop is new. So you've got to use your eyes, you got to use your everything you've got to overcome little things that are happening, because believe it or not, almost every single stop, somebody's overcoming something, but you don't see it. Mm-hmm. And because they're that good. Mm-hmm. A good stop is going to be 5.5 to 6 seconds. Our last stop on TV, which was the one that I pitted down on the 22, it was 4.8 seconds. Wow. That's four tires and fuel. Now, it was because it was the end of the race, it wasn't full fuel, but it was 4 tires and fuel, 4.8 seconds. So that's from the time the car stops to the time the car's gone. So yeah, it's fast, but when we're practicing and working out, it's all about attitude and encouraging. And one thing I found with that team and our team on the 12 is that, especially on the 12, who I work with the rest of the year, is Matt Johnson is our crew chief, and he does an amazing job on the radio of having a calm voice. Mm. All right, guys, we're going to, he'll call out, our fueler's name is Eric, and he'll say, all right, Eric, you're going to do 5.7 on fuel, go on lights. Guys, just nice and easy, smooth as fast, all right? And so just nice and calm, keeping guys focused on what they're doing. And then the car comes in and it's like, boom, it's a blur. And then the car is gone. And then the first thing you hear on the radio is, all right, guys, real good. Let's get ready for the one. Check your equipment. And he's just right here. And so in answer to your question, and Trevor, who was the 22 crew chief, was the same way with my experience. And so that level of experience and professionalism at that level keeps a young guy, an inexperienced guy, calm. And that's what has to happen, because all of those pit stops, the best analogy I can give you, Adrian, is all of those pit stops are the typical kid in the backyard getting the ball 3-2 and shooting up a 3 and it hitting nothing but net. That's what every one of those stops is like, because we lost races earlier in the year with I mentioned Iowa earlier, where Will went into the wall. That's because the inside front wasn't put on fully and it came off. So when things like that happen, those are air balls and you don't get them back, and you can wreck, somebody can get hurt. So every pit stop, although a blink of an eye, they're like hitting that 3 and hitting nothing but net every single time. And on most races, it's 2 to 3 times. On the ovals, it could be as many as 6 or 7 times in the race. And those guys are really, really good at what they do.
So Steve, to that point, there's a science and there's
Mhm.
math that goes along with it. And there's a reason that the pit box is as big as it is. And there's a reason that you want them stopping in a certain spot. So it's about repeatability to get a predictable.
Right, but for us, for the non-robots, it's about trusting what you've practiced and also a belief that you can do it. I mean, I didn't air jack the 500 this year. I air jacked at Texas, and there was nobody there. The guys that are air jacking the Indy 500, and I hope that I have that opportunity next year. But if not, to be there, as I've been there as a fan with 360,000 plus people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 500, and that's the Super Bowl for Indy cars. To every time you go over that wall to know that this stop could lose the race in one stop, is you can't think about that when you're doing the stops. It's about a belief and an attitude that I'm here, I'm in the moment, I'm doing what I'm getting paid to do. I'm going to do my job, and I'm not worried about what's going to happen potentially. I'm going to do what I do. And you have to overcome that anxiety with that belief and that attitude. And so I take that to everything I do. It's, I'm one of those guys at practice that's kind of nonchalant at practice. Now, when we need to, when coach says, hey, let's have some good stops here, I'm dialed in. But I'm kind of laid back at practice because that's where I want to try things. I may want to try to get a little quicker here, or maybe try a little different hand position here, because that's what practice is for. But we get to the track, you're going to do what got you there every single time.
So the battle's won on the 6 inches between your ears.
every single time. It's like I tell the kids before they take their road test, if I ask them, I said, can you drive? And they're like, well, yeah, I can drive. I said, then why are you nervous about your road test? And like, oh, but I got to do all that. I said, everything you did on your 3 driving sessions with our instructors are going to be asked of you again. Nothing new, no tricks. There's no trick questions. You're going to be asked to do the same thing. So when we're doing pit stops, Power is going to come in and he's going to stop the car. And guess what? We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the same exact thing that we did in practice, the same exact thing that we've done over and over and over again. So don't think about what may happen in a negative sense. Think about all the positives and getting that car out of there in record time.
So Steve, we're gonna cut this thing short. We're a little bit over. We'll do this again. I really appreciate your time. Adrian, Elizabeth, thank you for coming on with me. This is the first outing. So Adrian, I've got you guys on November the 12th, South Carolina Inventors Forum. Be speaking to those guys. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully somebody is going to get something out of this. And Steve, the attitude part in between the ears, that's why you came to the Redneck Ninja Warrior coach, right?
Right.
I'll teach you how to mentally break them down, right? But
That's it.
Man, it's so much fun, and I appreciate you so much. We're going to have you back on again, and would love to have some of the guys from Penske on too. So thank you for your time, and give them my thanks for allowing you to be on with us. Elizabeth, Adrian, thank you so much for being on. Brian Pearson, executive coach, business strategist, come see us, go out to the Facebook page, get on with us. Lightning in a bottle. We'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.